I don't know anything about sports ball in any of its forms, but the one thing I do know about the Olympics is that the Olympic Village is a horny, horny place. Today, we're going to delve into the only interesting thing about the Olympics: who gets laid and how. Hi, I'm Victoria, and I read bad books and tell you about them because you have better things to do with your time. The Home Depot box behind me is only an illusion. I moved yesterday. Today, we're going to be talking about Olympic Obsession, which is the 47th entry into the Yes Daddy series. I had to check my notes. The Yes Daddy series. I have a hard time believing that there are still lots of fresh ideas to be mined in the Yes Daddy universe after like number 30, but here we are. There were surprisingly few choices when it came to Olympic themed literature. There was also a lesbian romance with a coach that I really wanted to read, honestly, but it was too long and I was kind of on a time crunch. So here we are. We open with a POV from Malcolm. He really sets the stage for us here. Marissa Lynn Graves. I whisper her name under my breath as I read the latest article about her, resisting the urge to grab my and stroke it to images of her bent over a chair and begging me to take her. Maybe later. Many of these romances that I've read, that we have read together, you and I, they do this thing where they open real strong. They fully embrace the concept of an opening line that really hooks the reader. And, that's usually a good thing, but sometimes I feel like they should maybe pull it back a little. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a prude. If she knew how many times I've jerked off to her face, she might not meet me now. I've memorized every inch of her with such detail. I think that he thinks that there is a reasonable amount of times to have jerked off to her face, and that he has gone way, way, way beyond that. And I'm willing to bet that his reasonable number of times to jerk off to her face is much higher, just like as a baseline, than what I would say is appropriate. But so we've already established in the first 4 paragraphs that this guy might have a couple of red flags going on. And then we get this. In fact, she's all I think about now. At 37, I never thought I'd find myself obsessing over a 19-year-old. I've never been one of those guys who got hung up on a woman's age. Sexy doesn't come with some arbitrary number attached, and I guess we don't choose who we're attracted to, right? I don't inherently think that age gaps are bad, but in these books, it's never like a 35-year-old and a 50-year-old, It's always a 19-year-old and a man who could be her father. And that, I, So here's a fun game that I'm playing, and you can play along too. Just take a drink anytime you feel like this relationship would make you vomit. We'll have alcohol poisoning in no time. So he's a sport agent and she's an Olympic level swimmer on the rise. She hasn't made the team yet, but apparently everyone is picking her as a favorite to win the Olympics. He has traveled to her hometown in order to try and make like an official deal along with a bunch of other sports agents. Her parents are, or at least her father is relatively wealthy, and he's hosting like this thing in his backyard that feels kind of like a 16th birthday party, but is just to get her signed with an agent. So all of these agents have like flown into her dinky little hometown to go to her parents' house and try to sign her. Instead of waiting for that event that is planned, Malcolm decides that he needs to see her immediately, and he decides to sneak into the pool where she is practicing and try to get to her first. As he spies on her from behind the doors of the pool, they blow open magically, and she catches him and is rightfully like, I have to read you the quote. I promise this video isn't just me reading the book to you. It's just that I need you to hear what is happening, just to be a witness to the madness. What are you doing here and how did you get in? She says. I picked the lock and I'm here for you, darling. For me? For what? Who are you? My legs are shaking so much I think I can hear my knees knock together. You shouldn't be concerned about me being here. You should be more concerned if I wasn't here, he says, and I purse my lips and roll my eyes. I asked who you are. My name is Malcolm Mason, and I'm here to make sure you make it to Paris. What's that supposed to mean? Listen, little girl, there are a lot of agents out there who will make you promises, but I'm giving you my personal guarantee. You will go to the Paris Olympics with me. Call the cops. Call the cops. Call them. Call them right now. Also, little girl, that's real condescending. She doesn't address the little girl thing at all. She gets down from the diving board without screaming for help and tells him nicely that he should have come to the appropriate meeting that they had scheduled. He tells her he's not leaving her alone until they have a deal. He's just like, he's not leaving. When she asked him to leave because she's trying to practice and he's a creep who's been spying on her, and she doesn't even have any evidence that he's an actual agent. He's just a creep who's been staring at her through the windows. Also, this whole time she notices that he has a heart on, which is nothing if not professional. He then says, "You know you want me, baby girl. Just say yes." He winks. So Malcolm just continues to belittle her throughout their conversation, and she very sweetly invites him to come early to the dinner appointment as a compromise instead of pushing him into the pool and holding his head beneath the water. Look, I understand what the author is going for. I understand the appeal of the fantasy of having a man be completely obsessed with you without actually wanting a man to be actually obsessed with you. I get that distinction. And like, I understand the appeal of like calling someone daddy and wanting to be their little spoiled princess. I get it. The problem is that calling someone daddy is something that has to be earned. You don't just get that. It has to be earned through mutual trust and respect. And like consent. You can't just be condescending to a stranger and expect them to fall madly in love with you. Because he doesn't have any sort of like actual relationship with her, it's obvious that he just sees her as a sexual object, and that's why he's treating her like shit. If they had had a relationship, if they had like had some good banter, even like the bar is underground. It really is. If they had had any actual relationship and then he slowly started like testing the waters, like that would be more okay. But he's just straight up calling her little girl and being incredibly controlling, condescending, and creepy without having earned that trust and respect that I think is so necessary to any kind of dynamic like this. He's just trying to get her to see her the way that he sees her without any consideration of what she might want. And whether or not she, a 19-year-old Olympic star on the rise, wants to date a middle-aged man she's never met. This could be so easily fixed by him being a little closer to her age, or having her be a little bit older and, you know, not in such a position of weakness. And also just having them create this dynamic. Maybe they've been like chatting online for like months and he's been like giving her tips and like helping her with her career actually before he gets the signature. Like, it's so easily fixed, and the fact that this author just didn't see a problem with this dynamic that they've created just... So, Malcolm comes to dinner a little early. He pulls up in his incredibly expensive car and is immediately thinking about how shitty her perfectly lovely suburban home is, the lack of originality and creativity and individualism because of all of the houses being the same. He's like, she doesn't deserve this. She deserves so much better than this bullshit. And it's like, look, the white picket fence thing is not my dream either, but you don't have to be a classist piece of shit about it. Especially when it seems like his decor style is a combination of this and this. So I think this might be my favorite part of the book. He goes into her house, her childhood house. He meets her father and is like, all of these other agents are going to have all of these flowery words, but I have an action plan for your daughter. And when Marissa's dad asks what the action plan is, his response is, once she wins the gold, I have connections to the entertainment industry. Period. That's it. That's the entire plan. Marissa's dad is wowed by this. His mind is blown at his thoughtfulness and consideration. Malcolm then takes Marissa out to the backyard where her dad has set up like this. There's like an open bar and catering and like this whole thing for a couple of agents who have flown in to see her. Feels like they should be wining and dining her, maybe. But okay. Malcolm keeps calling her sweetheart, and being very belittling the whole time. A bunch of the other agents come in. Marissa is kind of mingling with all of them. At one point, Malcolm is talking on his own to another agent, and the agent is calling Malcolm out on his behavior because he's being inappropriate. During this call out, the other agent calls Marissa a little rich bitch, probably because she lives in a very nice house and her dad is throwing this huge banquet thing, and Marissa seems very sweet, but like we haven't really gotten to know her yet, so TBD on that. Obviously very unprofessional. And instead of responding to that in a professional manner, Malcolm just punches the guy in the face. Marissa is obviously flattered by this. Because of this violent outburst, Marissa decides to sign with him. He's going to be her agent. So special. The next day, Marissa's dad lets her, and like she's 19, he doesn't have to let her, but he gives her his blessing to go with Malcolm on this one-day road trip to get her to the Olympic training camp, wherever that is. Now, I just feel so bad for Marissa. It really seems like where her friends, where is her coach? Presumably she has a coach if she's been competing in nationals this whole time and like getting to this level. Where is everybody who cares about her? Because like, don't let her be alone in a car with this guy. This guy's clearly violent and clearly bad news. Like, this man is a stranger who is looking out for this girl. So they're on this road trip, and instead of just trying to get to their destination ASAP because they're professionals, Malcolm is like, we're going to make a bunch of stops. We're going to stop at every roadside attraction that we see because I'm creating this cute date scenario that you're going to love. They go to a petting zoo, and he gets really turned on seeing her pet some goats. I don't know why bestiality keeps coming up in all of these books that I'm reviewing, but it comes up way too often. Just not like a lot, just like hints, just a little sprinkle of bestiality, and I really wanted to stop. During this day-long date, he kisses her. She doesn't scream and run away because he's a man in a position of power and she really wants to make the Olympic team, so what is she supposed to do? Also, we haven't seen her compete at all. I'm not sure when we get to the point where we're shown that she's actually a really good athlete. But we're like a solid 40% into the book right now. And I'm not sure it's going to happen. They make it to the training camp next day, and Marissa points out a good-looking dude that she went on a few dates with and it didn't really work out. He was a bit of a dick. Malcolm, of course, threatens to kill him and thinks to himself about how he's an alpha and the other guy's just a beta. Very much in like a red pill way and not in a like hot Omegaverse way. Just at this point in the book that I'm like, no, a man wrote this. So I did a little research. There are 164 Lena Little books. That is more books than a reasonable author could write by themselves. I think these were all written by a man, maybe multiple men, maybe a man and a couple of women who have no understanding of what women actually fantasize about or want or feel. This author has no biopic. They have no real website. They have no about me section. They don't want people to get to know them. They want people to just consume the schlock that they put out onto Kindle Unlimited and think absolutely no critical thoughts about it. This isn't an author. This is a shell corporation. It just baffles me that there are people who go, gee, what if I became an author as a get-rich-quick scheme? Anyway, back to this fun book about love. Like and subscribe for more lighthearted reviews about fun books that I don't think should be burned in a ritual sacrifice. Malcolm finally takes her to the actual training part of training camp. And the guy that Marissa went on one date with, maybe a couple of dates, makes a lewd gesture with his hips. I'm trying to do it in the chair, but it's not really working. You get it. Malcolm reacts violently because his only three emotions are lust, rage, and superiority. For some reason, lifting this guy by the throat and trying to kill him is not a bannable offense for this facility, which leads me to the question of what is a bannable offense for this facility. Do you actually have to kill someone to get banned? Or do they just encourage this fun little Fun little physical banter between competitors. This and many more questions are never answered. Later, he drives Marissa to dinner and offers her a necklace with her name written on it. I'm sure it looks nice, and I have nothing against objects of jewelry with your initials or whatever on it. That's totally fine. It's just that it feels like a testament to how little he knows her. He couldn't pick something that was actually her style. He just picked something that happened to have her name on it because everyone likes stuff with their name on it. Also, he keeps calling her little girl, which feels so gross. At least try kitten or princess or doll. Something that doesn't remind us that you're twice her age and a creep. After dinner, he's like, you're coming back to my hotel room. And because she's alone, and who knows if anyone actually knows where she is at this point, and he's in a position of power and she wants to make the Olympic team, she says yes. Because what other choice does she have? Of course, it's not presented like that. It's presented like she actually wants to go there, but I'm not buying it at this point. He takes her to a dimly lit room, and rather quickly we find out that she is actually a virgin, which makes it so much worse. This is not the first time that we have read a book where it's a middle-aged man taking a teenage girl's virginity, and I don't want that to be a trope. I just want to read you this quote to really just bring home how inexperienced and naive this girl is. Do you like what you see? He says. Yes, it's making me warm and tingly all over. I've never seen a naked man before. Have you never been on the internet? On the interwebs? Also, I do not believe for a second that this sports bro douchebag knows where the clit is. So Marissa's just bound to have a bad time. The book says she has a good time, but again, the sex scene is completely from Malcolm's point of view. We don't get her point of view at all, so from his point of view, she's having a great time. And as a woman, we know how that is. The book fast forwards to Marissa finally making the Olympic team. We haven't actually seen her win any races yet. I was really hoping for a fun sports montage here. Like, teach me something about swimming. I know nothing. I can be taught so many things, but alas. The guy Malcolm almost murdered has some jokes for Marissa on her way to the Olympic trials. I don't know how you keep managing to rank so high with the whole grandpa hanging out of your ass, Everett says, and all of the other boys burst into a chorus of laughter. I don't know how you keep placing so high with all that alcohol in your system. I shoot back. Maybe it isn't so shocking that she finishes fast. Grandpa probably finishes fast too, he shouts, and all the boys crack up again. You really are a piece of shit, Everett. You know that, right? I'll tell you what, I'll stop by a senior citizen's home and spend some quality time with the ladies so you'll think better of me. He nearly spits at the end of the sentence, then turns it back to me. Look, while Marissa's sex life is none of this guy's business, Everett has a point. Marissa needs to work on her comebacks. Those were weak. Like, this guy just manages to place well while he also drinks. Like, that's actually a flex, Marissa. So Marissa goes back and tells Malcolm about it, and Malcolm has some jokes of his own. Everett King takes his place on the board, and we watch as he glides gracefully to the water below. He's such a graceful little twit. I wonder if he wore a tutu to ballet class, Malcolm says, and I laugh a little louder than I should. This is not the first time in the book that Malcolm has compared this guy to a ballerina in a derogatory manner. What's so funny about a guy doing ballet, Malcolm? What's so funny about an athlete doing dance, Malcolm? Do you realize how hard ballet is? So Marissa does the trial, and she makes the Olympic team, to nobody's surprise. They celebrate with Malcolm teaching Marissa how to blow him. Yeah, that seems about right for their relationship. So we fast forward again to Paris. It's presented like this is a couple months that Marissa went from trying out for the Olympic team to just getting to Paris. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a bit of a longer trial than that. Like, it just seems like they went from training camp to, yes, you're on the team, good job, to Paris, like, very, very quickly. Malcolm, while they're in the hotel in Paris, attempts to murder Everett again, and it's getting boring. It's because there's no actual conflict in this book. They could have actually had her struggling you know, to make the gold and like keep something interesting. But no, it's just this guy who occasionally says mean things. It's not even really like hurtful. It's not even like he's saying hurtful things that are like distressing Marissa. He's just kind of being a dick about it. And it's hard to, I don't know. I'm over it. I want something else. The entire Olympics takes place in one chapter. Marissa is winning her event, but then there's a glitch on the clock. She gets bronze instead. Everyone is freaking out, but like, it's the Olympics. There are cameras and multiple people watching. And if there was an actual glitch and she should have won, that is going to be national news. In fact, that is probably so much better than just straight up winning the gold, because how many people care about her race versus how many people will care about an Olympic scandal where people were sabotaging competitors. Like, that's career gold, baby. And as her agent, Malcolm should know that instead of being upset about it. He should be like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to you. But he's an idiot. So, and also thrilled is not one of his designated 3 emotions. So he's gone with rage. We find out later that it was, in fact, Everett's fault. He bribed the timekeeper because he's jealous of her being with Malcolm and not with him. So Marissa gets her gold, and Malcolm proposes in front of the Eiffel Tower, which is ironic considering how mad he got about the unoriginality of the suburban house that she lives in. And he was so mad about how cliche and unoriginal it was, only to give her this proposal. And look, there's nothing wrong with proposing in front of the Eiffel Tower. I'm just saying. Kind of hypocritical there, Malcolm. And then we get to the epilogue. Marissa just had a baby with him. And isn't that something? She couldn't compete in the next Olympics because she was pregnant, which seems like something they could have like, you know, when the Olympics are gonna be. It feels like something they could have planned around, unless Malcolm wanted to be a piece of shit and take away her career, so she was even more dependent on him, but I'm sure that's not the case there. So they live happily ever after? Question mark. This book has a 4.18 on Goodreads. Over 4 stars. I don't think Lena Little should be allowed to write books anymore. So yeah, that was the best Olympic romance that I could find. Someone please write something else, I beg you. It is a category that is yearning to be filled with something that is not that. If you had a good time or had a bad time, if you had a time, please like and subscribe. I will be reading more bad books next week. It never ends. Thank you so much for sticking with me on this one. Usually I thank the author at this point, but there's too much pedophilia here, so we're not going to do that. They don't deserve it. And I will see you next time, when hopefully there will not be any boxes in my background. We will see, no promises.